Why is anti-theism a problem? So I'm going to assume this person is going to talk too slow for my needs, and for that reason, I'm going to speed them up to a compromising 1.5 speed. Normally, I would listen at 2 times speed, but for your guys' sake, I know you guys are a bunch of plebs who like to listen at 1 speed, so we're going to meet in the middle, and we're going to watch at 1.5 speed. So that's what we're doing. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what Alakai, Alec, I don't know. It's kind of hard to read the name. I think it's Alakai, but could be wrong. Maybe she'll say it. We'll see.
Last week on July 20th, I did an interview on my friend Jen's channel, The Atheist Wind Down. We discussed several topics at length, from healthcare rights to memories, but one towered over the rest: allyship, respect, and why they must be synonymous. I'm here to talk with potential allies about how much more we share than not, so even if you're not a big fan of me and my work, I ask that you listen with an open mind. You might be surprised by what you hear.
I always try to listen with an open mind, right?
Kairate! Before we get started, I've got some new fan art from Discord that I'd love to share with you all. Celery of
Man, I need to get me some of these fucking, like, drawn versions of myself that I can just throw up. Like, I need to fucking get some of this shit. Because that's an easy-ass fucking video right there. Just rant. Don't even have to turn the fucking camera on. Just find a few little, images. You got, like, 6 or 7 different emotions that you cycle through based on what you're doing. Super easy.
Celery's Garden submitted this little gem of me sitting with a stack of books as big as my face. Adorable. And from House of Chimeras, we have a picture of me and a bunch of my friends together promoting allyship. From left to right is Wolf the Red, Ocean the Bar, Callan, myself, Jen, and Cirrus. We are
I don't care. Well, this doesn't mean anything to me.
Indeed stronger together. Thank you for your submissions. This topic is the central focus of my Xenia Bridge weekly live show, in which Jen and I invite folks from all over the YouTube community to talk about allyship. Atheists, polytheists, Buddhists, even some heretical Christians.
What the fuck is allyship? Allyship with what? What am I being fucking, who am I allied with? I'm not your ally. Like, I can avoid all this shit by I'm just no one's ally. Like, I'm not your ally. Anybody who thinks I'm their ally is fucking wrong.
Christians, all who see a common bond in fighting unjust legislation, social attitudes, and other problems that tend to stem from fundamentalist Abrahamic faiths. All of us share a common cause, but as I'd like to explore in this video, I think there's more to it than that. Before we get started though, we need to define some terms. I've noticed some opposition in the live chat on Xenia Bridge to my use of the term anti-theism and how it's synonymous in many minds with atheism. Though my friend Jen did an excellent definitional vid on the topic, link in the iCard when she gets it done.
Oh my god, why do people link this to me?
I'd still like to go over it here for those who haven't.
Is she a fur tuber? I mean, I would assume that she would be, like, have more of a fursona, right? I mean, I don't think cat ears and a tail and some weird-ass wings necessarily make a fursona, because, like, 99% of what I'm seeing here is human in appearance. So, nope.
Seen her or Ocean's take on the issue. Ocean's video on superstition is also linked in the iCard. The way I see it, there are 3 atheist camps when it comes to religion. The first we don't really hear from as much, which are folks who don't believe in any gods and move on with their lives. They don't tend to see their atheism as a central part of their identity. The second, anti-theists, are folks who see religion itself as intrinsically harmful and want to see it eradicated from the earth. These people often use abusive and derogatory tactics to combat religious ideas, even those they don't understand.
All right, hold on. Religion is a retarded relic that needs archiving in humanity's library of bad ideas. Explain how hearing Evie's song all day is a hallucination and your fucking God isn't. Until then, you have fuck all and are crying about it. Don't lump us in with Christians. We are different. Why? Personal experiences. Trash. Don't know the context of that. I'm not reading all that. When one person suffers from a delusion, it's called insanity. When many people suffer from a delusion, it's called religion. Creationism is retarded.
We'll get into these tactics and the reasoning behind them later. The third camp is anti-harm or anti-superstition. They're folks who place.
Okay. So basically, the breakdown of what an anti-theist is an anti-theist is basically an atheist who's a piece of shit. And now here's the third one.
Worship and religion on a spectrum and only oppose those beliefs and practices which directly harm the worshiper and those around them. They're not usually too
okay. So I don't. Okay.
Concerned with religions that don't proselytize, that are kept personal and don't oppose science, or those religions that don't try to legislate morality. They don't usually see belief in
religions that don't try to. Okay, so every religion has something to. I mean, like, there's no religion that's not against science. Okay. Because any religion that says, like, there's spirits, or, like, every religion makes some kind of claim that is against science. Whether it be, like, there are gods, or, you know, there's a god, or there are gods, or there are spirits, or there's magic, or something like that. There's always some element of it that defies reality. Because if there isn't, then if all of your beliefs are just rooted in science, then you're just being a rational person at that point. You know? I mean, like, I have irrational beliefs myself, as I think most people do. Like, I have, like, as a gambler, I've developed, like, oh, I think this number is lucky, you know? Now, that is an irrational fucking belief, and it's an unscientific fucking belief, and I can view it in that context and say, like, this is, you know, I'm being irrational with this. I still believe it, despite the fact that I know it's really not true, you know, because the human mind is a complicated and interesting, you know, little tool. But, yeah, you know, any religion by, you know, definitionally is going to expect you to believe things that are counter to, you know, a scientific, empirically based worldview. So, yeah. And I forget what the other thing was, but that's where we'll just draw the line, I guess.
Itself as harmful, only when that belief translates into cultural actions and practices which cause harm, such as shame for sexuality, suppression of feminine or minority rights, direct physical harm such as bloodletting or snake handling, and etc. This.
Oh, okay. So this idea basically is, hey, you know, don't oppose religion. Only oppose the bad things about religion, right? Well, I mean, the bad things about religion is totally subjective, you know? I mean, there's no inherent property of nature that says that snake handling is bad or that homophobia is bad. That's just opinions that you and I have. Now, I agree with the opinions. I agree homophobia is bad. I agree that snake handling is a dangerous practice, although I don't necessarily see it as bad, considering that the people who are handling it, you know, are doing so of their own volition. Granted, they're doing so because they've been deluded. But the thing about it is that it's kind of hard to like, let's say, okay, we're going to look at the Bible, okay, and we're only going to criticize the parts of Christianity that are homophobic. Well, the problem is that the homophobia is still in the Bible. You know, if someone believes I'm a Christian and I believe the Bible is the inerrant word of God, well, the inerrant word of God, according to them, is a text that supports homophobia, among some other fucking you know, nasty things. So, you know, I think it's kind of fair at that point to say maybe there's a problem with this text, or maybe there's at least a problem with viewing this text as the inerrant word of God. And therefore, maybe there's a problem with Christianity. Now, you could say, well, look, there's a lot of Christians out there for whom it's like, okay, well, this book is just representative. You know, this book is just a tome of stories that are meant to be, you know, interpreted symbolically. And maybe we believe there are some truths here, but we believe there's a lot of symbolism, and that it is the word of man. This is man trying to grasp the divine, and so it is a flawed book, but it does give us a window into some true divinity, and Jesus is a great moral teacher, and blah, 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 blah. So that person who has those beliefs is still bolstering the beliefs of the person who looks at that book and says, this is the inerrant and perfect word of God. And in fact, you know, it's possible that, you know, you raise someone up in one tradition of Christianity and they end up discovering a different tradition of Christianity. The best thing you could possibly do when you give someone a book like the Bible that has homophobia in it, that has sexism in it, that has misogyny and slavery and all this other horrible stuff in it, when you give them that book, what's a better repudiation? Is it a better repudiation to hand them that book full of that kind of stuff and say, hey, this book is, it might not be literally true in every way, shape, or form, but there is like a deeper truth within it. Here you go. Or is it better to say, here's a book of fairy tales that are made, here's a bunch of made up stories that are by people trying to understand their world in primitive times. And as a result, you know, there might be some things in here that are, you know, remain, you know, wise to this day. But there are also some things in here that are completely wrong and stupid. Here you go. Here's the book. I think it makes a lot more sense, if you really are against the homophobia and the sexism and all that other stuff, to hand them the book in that context. To, you know, because as long as you're a Christian, you're saying that there is some divine truth in that book. You know, even if you're the fucking most relaxed, like sort of like loosey-goosey sort of Christian that's just like, you know, it's just me and God have our own thing, and, you know, I love Jesus and all this stuff, but, you know, I'm not super dogmatic with my religion. You know, you're still giving deference to that book. And that book still says some nasty, gnarly shit in it. And so, you know, you're kind of helping that book propagate. And the same can be true of the Quran. I'm not really know enough about the Bhagavad Gita or something to talk about that. But, you know, a lot of these religious texts have some pretty, I guess the best word is problematic things about them that are pretty fucking nasty and if I wrote a book today that advocated the kind of shit that's in the Bible, if I just wrote like a book of like my philosophy of life and like, it's okay to have slavery, you know, and it's okay to fucking rape your slaves, and, you know, it's okay to treat women as chattel, and you know, if a son hits his father, that kid should be put to death. You know, if I wrote that stuff down in a book, people would say to me like, you're a fucking psychopath and you're crazy and you're a lunatic and your book's a piece of shit, right? And then I could say, well, wait a minute, what about all the good stuff in my book? My book also says to love other people as though they're, you know, as yourself. Love other people as though they were your brother. It also says that. It's like, okay, well, yeah, maybe there's some good stuff in your book, but a lot of it's fucked up. That's the attitude towards a secular book that contains what the Bible contains. So that's why I would argue that the best way, if you really want to fight the problematic elements of religion, is to get people to look at these holy texts through the lens of, this is literature, this is mythology. Because that's the only way you're truly going to, like, as long as you allow even a little bit of wiggle room of, like, this is maybe the truth, then even if you are trying to, you know, swim around the nasty stuff, you're still basically endorsing the cesspool that those turds are floating around in. So that's why I don't think you can be, you know, you're basically trying to say that people should cherry pick. You know, and there's no problem with cherry picking mythology or storytelling. Like, if I want to, like, I can watch a movie that has messages that I don't agree with, like the Pixar movie The Incredibles. A lot of people have criticized it for being a fucking pro Ayn Rand objectivist movie and having this real like anti-leftist kind of streak in it. Okay, I can kind of see that messaging in the movie, but you know what? I like that movie. I like it because I think there's some fucking redeeming shit about it, and it says stuff about aging and commitment to family, and, you know, being past your prime but still trying to, you know, do something and trying to do good in the world even when the world doesn't want you to do good. And there's like a lot of stuff in there that is still valuable. But imagine if I looked at The Incredibles and I said, this is the truth. The truth of the universe is in this movie. The truth of the universe is in it. That's going to be a way more problematic way of looking at a piece of fucking media, right? So, you know, I think it'd be stupid to say like, oh, well, we need to fucking have this middle ground of like, okay, The Incredibles is kind of the truth of reality. Certain elements of it are the truth of reality. Like, why can't we just like say like it's a movie, it's a story, it was written by flawed human beings. Some of the stuff in there you might agree with, some of the stuff you might not. Why can't we look at the Bible the same fucking way? Why can't we look at the Quran the same fucking way, or whatever religious text or whatever religious story? That'd be my contention on that one.
This video is primarily focusing on the second camp, the anti-theists. That's who I'm hoping to talk to today. Many of those I've met have been deeply hurt by concepts like hell belief that threaten the non-believer with horrific torment for all eternity if they don't stick to the religion they were born into. I plan on doing a video on hell belief and Stockholm Syndrome sometime soon, by the way. Evangelical Christianity, especially the fundamentalist varieties, has a tendency to put believers in a terrible bind where their entire communities are not only defined by faith, but those who leave it can lose near all their friends and family for coming out as no longer believing. When you combine that with many of these evangelical faiths denying personal experience with deity in favor of an intellectual focus on the Bible, gaslighting of believers who have doubts by redirecting blame for seeming contradictions on the believer's misunderstanding or misinterpretation, education, and the regressive tendencies toward LGBTQ folks and folks assigned female at birth, and you have the perfect recipe for severe trauma. I would know. I came out of a faith much like that and lost several of my family members who will not speak to me because I don't worship their God. I feel that pain. Coming out of any kind of trauma creates a cocktail of emotions. There's sadness and regret, but also a firestorm of anger. Anger at yourself for believing the lies you were told for many years just because of who told them to you, anger at those who lied to you, anger at the church as an institution, anger at those who uphold them, and for many, anger at the very concept of religion. I understand that anger. Many of us have suffered abuse and trauma at the hands of fundamentalists and evangelicals. The angry pagan phase is a thing we tend to go through alongside atheists. Many pagans first come into our paths after a bout of atheism or agnosticism or are introduced through Wicca. Many young Wiccans are afraid to approach any male gods because of lingering pain from the patriarchal religions they came out of. Dianic Wicca in particular, riddled with serfs as it might be, is very much a response to that pain, a vicious swing to the divine feminine and rejection of the masculine to strike back at those who hurt them. We often feel the need to trash Christianity.
I don't know what the fuck is going on anymore. So this video went from making some semblance of sense to like some Wiccan shit that I don't know anything about, and how like, you know, oh man, fucking these patriarchal religions have turned certain Wiccans away from the male gods because they don't want a male god because Christianity done messed them up. But we can't turn against the very concept of religion, bro. Like, why not? Get to why not. I just want to hear why not.
And sometimes even our own who acknowledge the Christian God is real, even if they don't think he's the only one or that most of the Bible has any basis in reality. We built this victimization into our very identities, lashing out at anyone who so much as hints at advocating a return to that horrible, helpless state. I'm not advocating for God belief here, mind you, just drawing a parallel. The problem with striking out against religion as a unified, quote-unquote, concept, however, is that you risk missing the nuances inherent in other faiths. By rejecting all based on the dominant hegemony, you create an issue where differences end up denied and oversimplification rules the day. It's the same principle as people who end up in a messy divorce and take on the misogynistic belief that all women are whores who just want to run off with their money, or all men are cheaters who just want to get some and take off. Although the pain from their experience is valid from their perspective, the conclusions they reach are not. For example, without divine command theory, which is loosely defined as believing morality and laws come directly from the gods and are unchallengeable, you have significantly less of a motivation to legislate morality on the rest of society. Without the insistence that only one set of gods and beliefs regarding them are valid, as found in Christianity, you're not motivated to convert others or force your beliefs onto them. And without the concept of a divinely infallible text that is supposed to govern all of humanity, there is less ground for science denial or the insistence of discriminatory behavior. Though all of these things can still happen, the powerful impetus put on the believer by all of them in Christianity is gone. By lumping all of religion into the category of inherently harmful, you are ignoring these important distinctions between faiths and limiting yourself on those who you'll be able to interact with in a respectful manner. Besides, anti-theism itself is founded on shaky ground. The insistent that beliefs...
I don't understand the argument. So, wait. The argument is that you get you get mad at the religion you grew up in or whatever because it fucked you up in the head, and you just say, well, then fuck all religions. Fuck them all! But then you're ignoring all of the good religions. It's like, such as what? Like, give me the good... Okay, so give me the good religions. I mean, the reason I'm an anti-theist is because I don't really see much redemptive value in any sort of religious practice, right? So, you know, I appreciate that people have religious beliefs, and I try to, like, respect those to whatever extent that I possibly can. Like if you want to go into the woods and, oh, Asmodeus, great god of the forest, I offer you these grapes, like whatever the fuck you do. I mean, I think it's stupid and silly and dumb and lame and weird, but whatever. Hey, you know, that's you, man. You do you. You can have a little fun with it. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm really grasping. If maybe the argument being made here has more reason or sense to it than what I'm projecting, but I just, like, to me, that was like a big old cavalcade of nothingness that just kind of boiled down to, like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's like, maybe there is no baby. Maybe the whole thing is fucking bathwater.
Even those originating from personal experience automatically cause harm due to a perceived increased risk of falling for
woe. Oh, by the way, I mean, in my personal thing, I never was really religious myself. You know, from a very young age, I did not believe in religion. So this idea that, like, I was mad at religion, and that's why I, like, was emotionally compromised to the point of, like, I just hate all religion. Like, that never happened to me. I just kind of thought it was dumb from a very young age, and I never really bought into it.
Slippery slope fallacy. Many folks in STEM fields, including a close friend of mine who's a climate scientist, have God belief and yet don't...
I'm glad to see the chat is every bit as confused as I am about what the hell this girl's talking about.
Don't advocate for any or all of the terrible things I talked about earlier. I've met Episcopalians who don't even deny that my gods exist, they just worship theirs, and they're supposed to be Christians. There are also atheists I've met who believe in bizarre conspiracy theories or are against LGBT rights because of biological determinism or bunk science. The answer to a single question doesn't immunize you from bad ideas or...
Yeah, no one said it did. Like, right, I mean, everyone has irrational beliefs. I stated earlier that I have an irrational belief in, like, lucky numbers and stuff. Like, if I'm playing roulette, sometimes I'll get the, oh, shit, it's going to be 3 is coming up. 3 is coming up. Oh, I feel it. Feel it in my bones. And then 3 comes up, and I'm like, holy shit, vindication. I was right. You know? Oh, I did it. I nailed it. I just fucking knew it in my fucking guts, man. It's a beautiful thing, right? But, you know, it's an irrational belief. And you talked about atheists that, oh, they believe in this or that or the other thing. Yeah, like, being an atheist does not immunize you against believing stupid shit. There are probably atheists out there who are, you know, more irrational than some religious people. You know? Just happen to not believe in God. They reject that bit of irrationality, but they believe something, you know, some other stuff that's just as irrational as God. But I mean, like, the argument you're basically making at this point is some atheists even are irrational. Therefore, how dare they attack my irrational beliefs in, like, a bunch of gods as a pagan? You know, like, does that make sense? Like, they believe irrational stuff that I disagree with. Therefore, how dare they criticize me for believing irrational stuff that they disagree with? Now, granted, this is all being said from the perspective of someone who wants to be an atheist, but also be an ally to pagans, which I personally have no interest in. Not that I have an interest in being an enemy with pagans. Like, I'd like to just kind of not even, like, worry about it unless the issue comes up. Like, on most things, I feel like my atheism is not going to, or my anti-theism for that matter, is not going to be much of a factor when it comes to most issues of the day, unless someone's using God or religion to justify their position, which thankfully I see increasingly less as the world becomes slightly more secular. So on most issues, my atheism and anti-theism are not going to come up, and I would hope that on most issues, you know, your paganism wouldn't come up, or, you know, someone's Christianity, or, you know, I'm the Muslim or whatever. Like, that shouldn't usually, on most issues, be a factor unless this person is totally like a fundamentalist, crazy, you know, deep into religion or whatever. And obviously there's a gradient of religious beliefs. Like, there are people who are super deep into, like, a very literalistic, fundamentalist interpretation of their religious you know, orthodoxy, and have this very rigid, dogmatic sort of belief structure that they adhere to, you know, to a fault. And those people are clearly more problematic than the people who are just like, I love God and I love Jesus, and don't really think about it much beyond that. But it's all part of the same overarching fucking problem. It's just different degrees of the same issue. And to say that, like, well, this degree is an acceptable degree, it's like, maybe not. Like, maybe at some point we should just say, like, maybe any degree of religiosity is a problem. Because maybe it really is a slippery slope. Maybe it really is like, hey, you know, once you accept some of this bullshit in your brain, like, what about, like, things like the alt-right pipeline or something? Clearly this, you know, the person I'm responding to here is of a pretty, like, SJW-y persuasion, right? So it's like, you accept one premise laid out by, like, you fucking, you know, you hear some, like, 1350 shit. Despite being only 13% of the population, black people commit 50% of the violent crime, and you're like, whoa, that's just facts, bro. Maybe racism is the way. You fucking admit one premise into your thinking without properly vetting it, without properly contextualizing it, and the next thing you know, you've been fucking radicalized. That, you know, you can say, oh, that's a slippery slope, that's a slippery slope. Maybe it's a slippery slope, but it's not a fallacy, because it happens all the fucking time. And the same thing can happen with religion. You know, someone who's just, like, the very casually religious, like, yeah, I believe in God, I guess. Something happens in their life that pushes them more towards that, they become fucking radicalized. They become Christian fundies or something. You know, you don't know. So don't act like, you know, any irrational premise is harmless in and of itself. Even my belief of like, you know, like there's lucky numbers and unlucky numbers. Like that could potentially be leading me to a path of like one day I'm like Jim Carrey in the movie The Number 23, you know? Like I'm just, oh my God, 23, it's everywhere. It's the secret. It's the code, you know? How many fucking, you know, what sort of traumatic event away am I from that? You know what I mean? So it's not good to just say like this irrational premise is acceptable. You know, we should try to hold people to a fucking higher, more rational, empirically based standard than that, in my opinion. Just my opinion.
Automatically predispose you to adopting them. To claim otherwise and subject people to ableist slurs like calling religious beliefs delusional and comparing gods to imaginary dragons in one's garage or hallucinations of Elvis is ultimately a form of science denialism. The DSM-5 itself puts a caveat in the description of delusions for religious belief. It's clear that although some religious experiences may be tied to mental illness, it isn't fair to say they all are, unless...
So wait a minute. Hold on. Okay, so like, I guess if you're going by the DSM definition of delusion as like when someone is officially delusional as a matter of like psychology, sure. But I think like when atheists call religious people delusional, we're going with a more colloquial definition, which like, okay, so let's go to Merriam-Webster on this. Like, one, something that is falsely or delusively believed or propagated. So that's probably the one we're going with here. Not the psychology one. Although I tend to think that, I mean, like, let's be honest, there's political reasons that the DSM is not going to fucking call religion a delusion. Because if it did that, that would be so fucking controversial that there would be no future DSMs. Or that would there'd be like such a strong backlash against that it would have to be fucking revoked. No one's going to fucking say like 80% of the population is fucking neuroaberrant. Doesn't even make sense at that point. So when an atheist like me says religious people are delusional, what I mean is they believe things that are not true. That's all I mean. I'm not trying to diagnose them with a fucking illness, okay?
You can prove that all of religious belief is automatically causing distress and interfering with people's lives, you can't call all of religious belief a clinical delusion. Especially given that
okay,
using delusional
it's fine, fair enough. It's not a clinical delusion. It's just a regular garden variety delusion.
Rational as an insult further stigmatizes people who have mental illnesses with psychotic episodes or delusions as symptoms. Your basic...
Okay, well, how does it further stigmatize them? Also, you don't sound as angry as your thing looks there, but whatever. I don't see how it further, like, okay, so a person is delusional. There's people who have legitimate clinical delusions, right? People who are like schizophrenic, schizoaffective disorder, a bunch of other mental illnesses can lead to delusional thinking. You know, I'm being watched by the eye in the sky that judges everything I do, or whatever the fuck. Or, you know, there's cameras hidden in all my soaps, whatever the fuck. You know, that person has delusional beliefs. Someone who believes that the eye in the sky, that's not the eye in the sky watching them, but it's God, all of a sudden, oh, that's a reasonable belief now. Because a lot of people believe it. Yeah, I mean, look, guess what? Maybe if everyone on Earth agreed with the schizophrenic delusion of the eye in the sky that was controlled by the evil government or something, if everyone on Earth agreed that that was going on, then maybe that belief wouldn't be detrimental socially either. You know, if enough people share the delusion, then yeah, maybe it ceases to negatively impact their lives because everyone fucking believes it. You know what I mean? But that's you know, whatever.
Stating that in your belief, these people can't understand their own reality because that's the claim you're making about theists. It also ignores the detailed systems of verification used within polytheist faiths when it comes to personal experience. I'll drop a link in the iCard to Ocean's video on the topic above. Suffice to say, most of us have thought through our faiths and detail and still support science. In fact, let's take a closer look at the idea that personal experience isn't a reliable path to truth.
I don't really know what your beliefs are. I don't know how I don't really see how you can really be a pagan and pro-science, because there's nothing in the world of science that says there's like multiple gods. There's nothing that states that exists. So I don't know how you can, if you believe that there are these many gods out there that you can communicate with, or that you can, you know, curry favor with, or whatever the fuck you believe, because I don't really know your beliefs, I would say that that's inherently anti-scientific. But, you know, hey, you know, if it makes you happy, I guess. I mean, I'm not going to fucking stop you.
Do you believe that an objective reality exists? Do you think you can experience it?
Oh, are you asking me these questions? Do I believe in there? Okay, so do you believe there's an objective reality? Yes. Can we experience it directly? I mean, define directly. Because, you know, the directly could be a tricky word in that sentence.
Directly? Are you sure? Because
Am I sure? No, I'm not sure. I could tell you I am sure that I am not sure. I'll go that far.
if you think you've ever touched, smelled, or tasted anything, you are technically wrong. What happened is that electrochemical pathways transmitted information to your brain, which was interpreted as the experience of smell, taste, touch, sight, etc.
Right, but that's what smell, taste, touch, and sight are. So, yeah, you did those things. It's just we understand how, like, that's like saying, like, I traveled in a car. Well, it's like, no, actually, the car is a combustion engine. It's like, yeah, you're explaining how the car works, but that doesn't mean I didn't do that. Like, if you can't just say, like, smell is just electrochemical. Yeah, that's what smell is, right? So,
But any interruption in those pathways or any part of reality we can't experience through them is locked away to us. We're limited by our senses and the instruments we construct in what parts of reality we can experience, and even then, we have to trust that the version of reality constructed by said senses must be reasonably accurate. If we don't, we just end up in a position where we're just a brain in a vat or a program on a computer somehow contemplating a false existence.
Right, well, I mean, that's definitely a possibility. That's why no one is sure, right? But part of what science is supposed to do is take us beyond, like, if we just, like, trust our senses then and act like everything's exactly as it seems, then, you know, that flies in the face of, like, we think that like human beings thought the earth was flat. In fact, some people still fucking think the earth is flat because it kind of just seems flat. It's not flat. We know from scientific observation, mathematics and stuff like that, and at this point, the fact that we've actually been to space and looked down and seen it, we know the earth is not fucking flat. You know, we thought that the sun rotated around the earth because that's just kind of what it looked like. But it turns out it was the other way around. The earth was spinning. So, I mean, like, science is not about just trust your senses. Just trust whatever you observe. Like, it's about going beyond that. It's about making predictions and testing those predictions and seeing if they hold true. It's about not just taking reality for granted, but looking at it, asking questions about it, forming hypotheses about it, testing those hypotheses with experiments to see if the way that you think things are is the way that they actually are. So it's about going beyond your senses. It's about, hey, you know, if things really work this way, you know, then we should be able to see this phenomena happen if we did this experiment. And if we don't see that, that means that things actually don't work this way. So science is meant to take us beyond just our senses and, like, the data that they fucking feed us. But on top of that, you know, there are, of course, certain assumptions that have to be made even to accept science. So it's a very real possibility that we could just be brains in vats. It's a very real possibility. We're not even that. We're just free-floating thoughts. Maybe, you know, the entire universe is nothing but everything exists because the potential of it exists, and therefore we're all just potential expressing itself in this moment. You know, I don't know. There's the certain, like, a bunch of crazy hypotheses could be true. A bunch of things that are beyond our ability, at least right now, to test could be true. That would undermine everything we think we understand about existence. But, you know, we can't just just because we can postulate that, just because we can't disprove the brain in a vat hypothesis, doesn't mean we should just default to that or anything. I don't think you're advocating that we do that. I think you're just trying to, like, muddy the waters so that it seems like maybe what you're saying is rational. But until, like, what I advocate for is believe what you have evidence for. And if you don't have evidence for it, then you shouldn't believe it. And if you are going to believe it, at least admit to yourself that you're believing it just because you feel like it and not because it's actually true or there's any good reason to believe it. I come back 2 hours later and he's still bloviating. What the fuck do you expect? What did you think I was going to do on this stream? Hold on. Where's this person? Yeah, that's what a stream is. When a fucking YouTuber streams, they bloviate. Because that's what the fuck we do, dipshit. Get the fuck out of here, you prick. You're fucking banned. Remove. Actually, I didn't ban you. I just removed your comment. So, all right. Well, whatever. Let that be a warning to you, you little bitch. Not that you give a shit. Anyway. I guess we should finish watching this.
What you're implying is that if it's possible to hallucinate touch, taste, smell, etc., then all of these things thereby must be hallucinations. Would you stick your hand on a burner just to prove the pain isn't real? If the answer is no, you must trust personal experience to some degree. And if you say it's the interpretation you have an issue with, then great! Pagans tend to argue with each other about the interpretation of our personal experiences all the time. We don't tend to deny that they're divine in origin, but we do tend to argue about what they mean. By attempting to reclassify all of divine experience as undiagnosed or diagnosed mental illness, you're creating a situation.
What the fuck? I never said, I don't know. It's like, obviously, human beings have a proclivity towards interpreting data about the world in a religious manner, right? Like, even very early human beings had an inkling of the afterlife, you know? We don't really know what the theology of the caveman was, but we've seen that there have been, like, there's graves where people have been buried with their possessions and stuff, obviously, you know, indicating that there's some kind of belief of, you know, life goes on somehow in some other place. So there's like a natural sort of tendency towards that kind of thinking. So I don't necessarily know that it's mental illness or like delusional in the sense of being like a clinical delusion. I think it's delusional in the sense that it's false, in just the sense that it's not true. And I don't really, as far as your argument about, you know, yeah, can you hallucinate a sight? Of course you can. Can you hallucinate a smell? I guess. You know, that's why you shouldn't, you should not have absolute trust in your senses. You know, I mean, like, how many times have you been walking somewhere, you've seen something on the corner of your eye, like, what the fuck is that? And it's like, it's just some mundane shit, or it's just nothing, or it's a shadow, or whatever. But for a second, it was a snarling fucking monster or some shit. You know? So you don't just automatically trust your eyes and your ears and your nose and your senses. Your senses can lie to you. Even Ebenezer Scrooge fucking knew this. You know? The least little thing affects them. There's more of gravy than grave about you. You know what I mean?
Situation where it's not possible to treat those with God belief as equal to yourself in terms of cognition. You must be right and they must be wrong. But pagans don't see you that way. Given that we ground our beliefs in personal experience rather than some divine holy text, we see your non-belief as equally valid. We're using a similar epistemological framework, and if you're frustrated by all the nuance and detail—
Wait, how the fuck? You can't. No. If you believe that there are gods and goddesses out there that are you're communicating with and you're having personal experiences with, then my non-belief cannot be equally as valid as that. You know, there's an inherent contradiction there. Like, if you're like, there's gods and goddesses, and I'm like, no, there ain't. Not only that, but I believe that believing there is a harmful activity. You know, like, we're at odds. Like, there's just no tap dancing around the fact that we're at fucking odds at that point. And this is why, of course, you're making this anti-theist screed. You're basically saying, like, hey, if you're an atheist and you're willing to just be like, look, I don't believe in any god or gods, but other people do, and I suppose that maybe, you know, as long as their beliefs aren't directly harmful in some way or shape or form, then I guess that it's okay for them to do that. I mean, it is okay. I'm not trying to fucking stop anybody from believing whatever the fuck they want to believe. It would be a fool's errand to do that in the first place. But I'm going to advocate for what I fucking believe, and I fucking believe that religion is wrong, and I also believe that religion is harmful. And do I believe that all religions are equally harmful? No. Do I believe that, you know, all religions are equally dogmatic? No. Do I believe that they're all equally bigoted? No. But do I think that they all contain problematic elements? Yes. And you know why? Because a religion is necessarily accompanied by false or at least unverifiable fucking beliefs. And if you have beliefs that are irrational, then that could lead to irrational actions. And in fact, usually it does. Now, am I claiming to be some perfect pillar of rationality? Obviously, I am not. Okay? But it's something I am striving for. And I don't think I'd be striving for it if I was wasting all my time petitioning gods and goddesses for help.
Detail in the aforementioned questions and examples, welcome to the hell of epistemology. It's hard to know anything about anything. There are also nasty tactics and scripts related to street epistemology, but that's a topic for a different video. Let me know in the comments if you want to hear my thoughts on it, but I can sum them up as the Socratic method is both more thorough and more good faith. Beyond this, it can hardly be called critical thinking to recite scripts without listening to the answers to your questions. Critical thinking
I don't know what you're fucking talking about.
itself entails willingness to engage with ideas without the assumption that you already have the answers. I have a personal saying that fits well here. I'd rather be educated than right. In other words, even when discussing things with folks you disagree with, don't automatically assume you know what they're going to say. Be open to the experience of new information and new perspectives. By taking
Sure. Fair enough.
the time to understand those you disagree with, you can deepen your understanding of your own perspective. When you lump all of religions into a single straw man based on a single faith you've experienced in your life, you rob yourself of the
It's kind of rich coming from someone who, like, at the beginning of this video was like, there are 3 types of atheists. There's atheists who are just like, whatever, I don't give a fuck, there's no God. Then there's the anti-theists. The scumbag, slur-spouting pieces of shits that they are. And then I forget what the third one was. But then later on in this video, you're like, don't just assume you know what your opposition's all about. You know, you should be an open-minded person. It's like, you don't really seem like you're being very open-minded, you know? Hey, look, I'm totally open-minded to the idea that there are gods and goddesses out there. Just fucking show me some evidence that that's true. And, you know, personal experience doesn't count. Doesn't count. Because people have had personal experiences of all kinds of crazy shit that isn't true. You can hallucinate, you can fucking daydream, you can just plain old regular dream, but think like, wow, that was a message from the divine. People have been doing that for centuries, for eons. So yeah, personal experience, not a great argument. But hey, if you have some actual evidence of gods or goddesses or something equivalent to those, you know, said entities, then hey, I'm totally open-minded towards that. I'd be interested as fuck to see that evidence. But I got a feeling you don't have that evidence. I got a feeling that all you have is like, I communed with Ogalobogos, the spirit of the woods, and I felt his divine tree branch of glory, you know, caress my perfect skin as I danced through the valley of Greganor. I don't know. Just making shit up. I don't know anything about your fucking faith.
opportunity to learn. Insult and criticism are not the same thing, and critical thinking is not synonymous with regurgitating the same rhetoric about irrationality of a quad omni god that you would when talking to most Christians and expecting to own a pagan. Respect in discourse is essential. Respect itself is essential for allyship. You can't work with someone who sees you as less, and by labeling us irrational without more than a cursory glance at our ideas and beliefs, mentally ill because experiences that can't be reclassified as such without a medical degree, and—
I mean, look, I'm saying you're irrational on the issue of there being gods and goddesses, okay? On other issues, I'm sure that you're perfectly fucking rational. Like, just like there's, I mean, like, I admitted at the fucking onset of this video, there are things I'm irrational about, you know? So this meme you got up here, so you're telling me that even though you insist I'm irrational, inferior, and crazy, you still respect me? So first of all, it's a big giant leap from irrational to inferior. I'll say that at the fucking, you know, right off the bat. And I consider myself to be, in many ways, irrational. And as far as crazy goes, I mean, clearly, everybody's got a little crazy in them, okay? As far as inferior, I don't fucking think of anybody as superior or inferior to me because it's all just a bunch of subjective fucking bullshit. You know, there's no, you know, maybe like, if you want to fucking find, like, here's, like, I am taller than this person. That's a fucking fact. The fact that I'm taller doesn't make me superior. It just makes me taller. Some, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime is stronger than a 98-pound weakling on the beach. Does that make him superior? No. It just makes him stronger and more muscular. Like, you know, these are all subjective fucking ideas, and we each can bring our own interpretations to them about who's inferior or superior or whatever the fuck. But, you know, ultimately it's just opinions. So as far as that one goes, that's just a judgment call, and that's, you know, the eye of the beholder kind of shit. As far as irrational goes, that has an actual definition. As far as crazy goes, maybe that one's kind of in the middle between the objective and subjective. But I consider myself to have some irrational beliefs, and some that I recognize as irrational, and there's probably some beliefs I have that are irrational that I've failed to recognize as irrational. So it's not a big deal. But religion seems to be codified irrationality, and I don't think that we should just pretend that it's not that.
Engaging with the sole purpose of one-upsmanship and deconversion puts you in the same position as Christians attempting to reconvert us. You left the faith behind. Why carry the baggage of perpetual correctness and evangelical drive with you? We want to fight woo as much as you do.
I don't want to be correct for the sake of my ego, right? My ego is plenty big. I could be wrong as fuck and still have a giant ego. Plenty of people have pulled off that magic trick, okay? I want to be correct because I think it's better to be correct than incorrect. Like, let's say you're faced with like 3 doors, and behind one door is certain death, and I think it's the middle door that's certain death. I'm pretty sure the other 2 doors are fine, Would you rather be correct about your assessment or incorrect? Of course you'd rather be correct. People want to be correct about what's going on in reality, because the more correct you are about reality, the better you can navigate reality. And obviously, no one's perfect at it. No one's correct all the time. People are wrong about stuff. People have irrational beliefs. But I think that, using things like science and empiricism and, trying to understand objective reality to the greatest extent we possibly can, always keeping in our head the caveats that it could all just be but a dream, or a simulation or whatever. Keeping that shit in mind, I think that leads one to a better ability to navigate reality, because it means you're more correct about at least those things. Now, there of course is mountains of subjectivity involved in any sort of endeavor. Between the data and your interpretation of the data, there's a long, perilous, and winding road of subjectivity that, we're never going to have these concrete answers for that are easy. But when it comes to the existence of God or gods, that's not subjective. We might not have a definitive answer at this point, but a definitive answer does exist. There either are or there aren't. And at this point, there's no evidence that there are, so I think the safest assumption is that there aren't.
We've suffered as you have. We've been angry like you are. We accept you for who you are and what you do and don't believe. We're welcome to discussion and challenges to our ideas, but only within a respectful framework where we're treated as equal participants in the conversation. Many pagans see atheists as potential allies, but the abusive tactics anti-theists use to try to sway us from our beliefs rather than accepting us for who we are ultimately burns bridges before they could ever be built. And why should you burn the bridge with a potential ally over the answer to a single question?
Because I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. There's no look. If the bridge is burned because you say, hey, there's gods and goddesses, and I say, no, there's not, and you say, well, we can agree to disagree, and I say, actually, I think that's stupid and you're wrong, then, if we can't be allies because I don't like it, then, whatever. We fucking can't be allies. I never wanted to be fucking allies in the first place. Let's be allies on specific issues that we actually agree on, if there are such issues, and beyond that, let's just fucking agree to disagree, I guess.
It seems silly to me. Thanks for sticking with me through that. I know we talk a lot of—
All right, are we done? We're done. Okay, cool. Whew, longin'. I don't know why some people sent this to me, but they did. So, yeah.
I'll tell you the worst thing I ever had, Paul, and it's fucking disgusting.
I knew it! I fucking knew it! Can't be smoking in my house, dude. You're gonna piss my wife off.
Fun, I'm putting that in my mouth. Almost made me, throw up coffee all over the mic.